broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Anthony is here, sitting in this Wednesday edition of our broadcast. In this edition, we have a special guest in studio. He is Dr. Nathaniel Blama, former executive director of the Environmental Protection Agency, is our guest, and we are going to talk about the work of the agency of government. He served there. We want to know what he was up to there at that agency of government, and what is the work of the Environmental Protection Agency. Many of us have heard about that institution. What is it actually doing for Liberia? We see a lot of things going around: solid waste, wetlands, sand mining, minerals. What does the Environmental Protection Agency do for Liberia in order to enhance our development and the protections of our natural resources and a physical environment in Liberia? Welcome again. I'm Anthony CA. This is Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. At this time, I will welcome my guest, Dr. Nathaniel Blama. Dad, welcome to Focus on Liberia. It's my pleasure having you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy that today we are clearer than the other time. I know it was a bit difficult getting through, but today is a lot more clearer, and thanks for the invitation.
Thank you so very much, and also for the effort you make. We couldn't get it to work the first time. We are here to talk about the Environmental Protection Agency and the level of work that you did there. We also would like to know, your accomplishment there. But so let's get to it, folks in cyberspace. Do us a usual favor, share the show with your contact. Let's hear from Dr. Blama. Let him share with us his experiences and what the work of the Environmental Protection Agency is all about. And so welcome to our broadcast. Dr. Blama, those of us who try to follow these current events, you came in the news. We know you have been at that agency doing some work for us, and sometimes that's all we know, Dr. Blama. So who is Dr. Nathaniel Blama, so that my audience can have the opportunity to get to know a little bit about you, something ordinary, something that we can connect to. We all have all bringing and all that. Share something that.
Well, strangely enough, people that know me, my upbringing, they would classify me as maybe a church boy. I grew up in the church. I sang in the choir. I directed the choir. I served as youth president, men president, rose to the rank. Now I serve on the board of deacons and the board of trustees of my church. In the Baptist Compact, at least I've earned for myself some level of respect among my fellow Baptists because I served. So I did some theological studies in the Baptist church. Young men coming up, as would be required, you do. Most of the young men do. There's a program in the Baptist Compact called the Royal Ambassador Program, intended to train young men to be well-informed, responsible followers of Christ. I went through that program. And I also went through a program called Theological Education by Extension from the Liberian Baptist Theological Seminary. I did a lot of correspondence courses. So I know God for myself. My knowledge of God is my own personal experience. I'm married. I've been married for 20 years. This year be 21 years. My wife is a minister of the gospel, Reverend Henrietta Blama. She also graduated from the Liberian Baptist Theological Seminary. And, service-wise, I've worked with a lot of youth organizations, youth programs. I'm a passionate person with working with young people because I know myself, growing up was a difficult time for me. And I believe that whatever experience I've learned, whatever skill set that I have, we should pass it down to the next generation. I believe that whatever I suffer, the young people don't have to suffer it if I can help make their being around better. So I commit myself to that, to youth development, promoting youth organizations. I've never been part of any agitation of any violence. I've always stood up on the side of the law. I've never been to prison. I've never been charged. I've never been questioned to any police station. So basically, I try to walk worthy of the call. The Bible says, walk worthy of the vocation where you are called. So wherever I find myself, I work with diligence. I work with commitment. I work even when people are not looking at me. My friends called me workaholic because I'm the person that rise up early and go to bed late.
Wow.
And that work attitude, I learned from my foster father. I was reared by the late John W. Brandy Sr. And that old man, I saw work. He worked us up until I adopted an attitude of work. When I went to live with the Brandys in the early 80s, my mother carried me there and told the people, this boy is very smart, but he's lazy. He doesn't like to work. And so the old man said, okay, forget it. I'll put him to work.
And Dr. Blama, not interrupting you, were you smart and lazy? Did you accept that at the time?
Well, it's not like I was lazy, but I was very mischievous.
Okay.
I would let my friends do work for me. I would just talk them up and I let them do work for me. I would tell them I would do your assignment. I would teach you how to do this. I always like to play this. I used to like to play the smart game, but that didn't work for me. And so when my mom did that, so then the issue became every time we used to do gardening. I grew up right in Congo Town. We went to the garden to make garden. Right. Anybody that you know from Congo Town, you refer to Congo Town, where that long iron is down the hill there. That's where we made a garden. That's what we did to go to school. We made garden to go to school. We used to make gardens, sell to all of the restaurants in town. We sold lettuce, cabbage, collard greens, potato greens. And I used to pull greens in the wheelbarrow and go to the market on Saturdays to sell. That's how we went to school, and so because they said I was like that, so my foster father said, okay, we'll give everybody a quota every day. In the morning, in the evening, they will divide the work. You're doing this, you're cutting this, or you're going to dig this number of bay, you're going to prepare this, you're going to plant these number of signs, or do this transplanting, or the rest of it. And because I was the smallest among my foster brothers, so then I had to get up early to work while they were still sleeping. So
and why you think you needed to do that?
Because I don't have the strength that they have. I'm not as strong as they are. So if I wait for them, they're strong. They get there, they work fast. And then when the sun comes up, you can work well. Right. So I used to get up early, go in the garden while they're still sleeping. I would cut if I need to cut, deep when I need to deep. And then by the time they come, I'm raking, and then we're talking. And sometimes when they come, they're working because they have confidence in themselves. They're working, and I'm sitting there. The old man come and see me. He said, "Why are you sitting there? Your friends working?" I said, "I finished all my work."
Oh wow!
And he got very interested. That I'm very smart. Indeed, I was smart. That I would get up early and do my work. So, that attitude of getting up early. Once I got something on my mind, I don't sleep.
You don't sleep until you get it done.
Yeah, it's an attitude that I adopted from a very tender age, and people don't understand. We didn't come. Some of us didn't make it here in life by chances or by hope or crow. We work very hard.
So again, not interrupting you. You didn't born with that silver spoon they talk about, right?
No. My parents were not rich. My foster parents were not rich. My mother sold in the market up to her death. She kept selling Willow Market and Table Markets. My foster parents were not rich. My foster father made gardening, out of which all of us had to do to go to school. We learned how to hunt. Where they got a ministerial where they got a Pacos Island, we used to go there to hunt. We used to go fish. Where they got a ministerial complex, all there. We used to go there.
Yeah. I used to fish in that. Let's make a conversation on. I used to fishing. I'm a fisherman's son, so good. I am a fisherman too. So you said you used to hunt. Was that tabadoo or what kind of animals were you trying to hunt?
That was small thing. That one a groundhog. We just said we used to have groundhog, foxhole. We just said and that one for our soup. But we really go hunt deer meat in our place. Deer meat. Deer there. We used to go hunt deer, and so in the night, the old man would take his single barrel. Sometimes he wake one of us, you going with me, and you go, and the next thing he got a meat, y'all come in the, sometimes 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, you're clean the meat, and do other things, and then you're getting ready the next morning to go to school. And we used to also fish in the lagoon, where they got our whole lagoon going all the way coming towards the Congotown Back Road Junction. That's that lagoon there. We used to set basket in that lagoon and we'll catch cold fish,
And finally, earlier you said when you were at that young age, you were this kid trying to either do assignment for your friends, so that they could do part of your work. And your mother saw that and she said, oh, this boy might be lazy. And so my question here is, where did you get that little skill from? Trying to trade job for maybe assignment so that maybe you will not do the hard work. That is typical of a rich man's son doing that, giving their friends money for their work.
I think I was just born mischievous, and I always thought ahead of my game.
Okay.
If I have something to do, I would say, you give me this, I will keep trading, and it was just a style coming up. But that was taken away from me when I went to live with my foster parents, because they didn't buy that from me. You're not going to give anybody some of your food. You're not going to give anybody for some of your food for them to do your work, because everybody has enough food. So so you're not going to give anybody food. So so by and large, I have a very humble beginning and humble background. So that's why when I look behind, I'm always feel obliged or obligated to see what I can do to help as many persons as I can. I don't have the fortunes, but even if it is just knowledge, I try to make it available to help young people. I've helped, like just a few minutes ago, I had some young people in my office that I provided for. They secure a grant from I think it is something $1,000 grant to do projects, so they can tell me thank you. As much as I can help, I help. That's what I do.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you so very much. Dr. Nathaniel Blama, ladies and gentlemen, is our guest here in this Wednesday special edition of our show here, Focus on Liberia. I'm Anthony C. sitting in today in this conversation with Dr. Blama, and we will be talking about the Environmental Protection Agency, where he served as executive director for a couple of years. We all know this institution, or let me say we all have heard about it, but we don't know all the work that institution does, and that is here to help us know all that. So, Dr. Blama, again, it's good that you are here with us. So let's get to something else quickly. Our audience, we tease them a little bit with a great little story about your life journey and all that. The EPA is the Environmental Protection Agency. I know we will break it down small, but if you were to give an overview of its role, what will it be? What is that institution all about that?
Actually, the Environmental Protection Agency is one of the most important institutions in Liberia. Unfortunately, is being classed as one of the least, but it is not. The EPA was born out of the Constitution. The Liberian Constitution called under the Bill of Rights of the Constitution. It calls for the right to clean and healthy environment. So the EPA, that's one of the principles on which the EPA was developed. If people have right to clean and healthy environment, who's going to ensure that? Another principle on which the EPA was built, the Constitution says Liberians should be partakers in the management of their natural resources.
Certainly.
Or their resources. The EPA is one of the very few or the only entity that ensures that people participate in the management of their resources through a process called stakeholders engagement. Under our laws, every company that operates in Liberia must do an environmental social impact assessment study. When that study is done, the EPA takes that study to the community, to the affected community that the project is going to go on, and say, these people say they want to have a farm here.
Right.
Are you aware of it? This is how they're going to operate the farm, and these are the potential threats it might cause to your livelihood. And along with the community, the EPA sit with the community and the company with that tripartite arrangement, and they agreed on ways in which the company will operate, and so that the communities will not be affected.
Okay.
Another way is that the EPA ensure equitable distribution, access and benefit sharing. If you're going to access something from the community, how is the community going to benefit? So through the work of the EPA, you have seen in lately there have been minimal confusion around concession areas as it relates to communities. Unlike before, a lot of communities complain about people not being involved, but through the environmental and social impact assessment processes, communities are now involved in the management of the resources. Another principle on which the Environmental Protection Agency was built is for Liberia to participate in multilateral and bilateral environmental agreement or negotiation or global environmental issues. So, say for example, there is this big talk about climate change,
And we're going to get to climate change or that. Thank you for that overview. Folks, stay with us. Dr. Blama is going to help us to understand the work of the EPA. He was just giving an overview that, the EPA, as I was doing my research, I kept hearing this word sustainable management of the environment and natural resources. And so when I look at that over and over, it kind of begs the question, how does the EPA go about managing the environment sustainably? Give me some specifics there.
Okay, it's very simple. The government of Liberia, most of the land in Liberia are owned by private individuals or community. Most of the land are communal land, community land, and what have you, or private land. Most of the land. Because you own the land, it doesn't mean you are free to do whatever you can do on it. The government can regulate how you use your land so that it does not affect other people in adjacent community from your land. Say, for example, my uncle used to fish. So he died. We got a big land and there's a river passing through. Because my uncle used to love fishing, does that mean we can bury him in the river? No. You cannot. The EPA ensure that you bury him in a place that his burial will not affect the water body or will not affect this. So when they talk about sustainable management of our natural resources, it means to manage the resources in the way that you eat now and other people will eat tomorrow, so that successive generation will benefit from it. That's why it calls sustainable management. If you're fishing, your fishing practice cannot deplete the fish. The fishing community has to be regulated. Like people normally, before in the past, people would throw dynamite in the water. That's sustainable practices of fishing. So that is very important to stop, so that when you fish, you can eat today, and tomorrow if someone wants to fish, they can also eat. The way we do our farming practices, it has now we got something in environment speed. They talk about smart agricultural practices. Mostly looking at the possibility of utilizing lowlands rather than highland, because you're cutting the highland and the next year you got to go cut another bush. So we're encouraging people to adapt using the lowland farming. So those are sustainable agricultural practices, because on our land you can use it multiple times. But on the highland you use it, you have to go another 10 years before you come back and use it. It's unsustainable. So the whole idea of sustainable development, like for example, in the mining communities, like in the mining communities, people used to just dig the hole and then they finish, you go another place and dig the hole. That's unsustainable. When you dig the hole, you must be able to remediate, cover it up, and then replant trees, vegetation, let it regrow, and other crops can grow and people can live on it. That's sustainable mining. While you benefit, other people should benefit from it too. So other generation can benefit from it.
And that I will come to the mining for you to give me some specific explanation there that everybody can be able to understand. But let's talk about the agriculture that you were talking about. In the lowland area, like you say, Monrovia has a lot of swamps. We see people planting rice, but they see some people living nearby. You were also talking about maybe the use of fertilizer. These things. How can this EPA, or how does the EPA go about regulating these activities so that the use of something like fertilizer may not have an impact on the environment? to
Well,
sustain that
right
environment?
now, in lowland, it's forbidden using fertilizer.
Okay.
You know, people don't use fertilizer in lowland, in lowland. You know,
And why is that? Why is that forbidden?
Because when you use it there and the water rise, it seeps into the ground. Okay. And it ends into the water vein, and it can affect lower communities. It can spread in other communities. It's unsustainable agricultural practice, you know. And so, in fact, there are different kinds of fertilizers now. You know, there are organic fertilizers. Other fertilizers come from the same plants and animal use. You know, those ones are encouraged to be reused, but the ones that are chemically charged, there's a ban on importation of those kind of fertilizers in the country. One of the regulations that the EPA has in place in the use of chemicals, because there are lists of banned chemicals that you're not allowed to bring. Some of the fertilizers have been banned. So whenever someone apply and say we want to bring in fertilizers, the Commerce Ministry send the material safety data sheet to the EPA. Right. And the EPA reviews it and see the content of the material that you want to bring. If it is not among the list of banned substances, it is approved. If it is among, it is rejected. You cannot import it into the country. So clearly, there are certain kind of substances that are not allowed to be used in Liberia, and the EPA regulates that, the use of chemicals and pesticides.
So short answer on this one, that means all chemicals that are imported in the country or manufactured in the country, it must be reviewed, or they must be reviewed by the EPA for approval before it can be used by anybody in the country.
It must be approved.
Approved, okay.
EPA before it can even be imported into the country.
All right.
And anybody manufacturing chemicals in the country, you must tell the EPA how you're going to do it, and they must review your plan and approve it by permitting you. And the permit comes with terms and conditions before you can even start operating a processing plant or processing facility. So the EPA was very big.
Okay, so that means that even when that processing plant may be built for the production for chemical, you have to go and inspect. You have to look at the safety information, to avoid any potential exposure, right?
Yeah. But periodically, the environmental inspectors visit that facility. And then the facility, one of the permit conditions is that you must provide a self-monitoring report. You have to record everything you're doing in your operation and provide to the EPA monthly or quarterly. You have to give it. Then the EPA will do an audit. You said you were doing this. Let's see if you're doing it the way we told you to do.
Certainly. Thank you. Again, folks, in cyberspace, focus on Liberia. This is our Wednesday edition, and we are in conversation with Dr. Nathaniel Blama, former executive director of the Environmental Protection Agency. Those of you who have heard about this institution but have not had the opportunity to listen and hear about their roles and responsibility, their regulatory authority and powers, this is your chance, and you can only get it here at Focus on Liberia. That earlier you were talking about the mining sector. Tell me and give us a descriptive explanation so that Liberians can understand what role does the EPA play, let's say, for example, at a mining location where people dig in gold. What are the things you're looking for, and what are you trying to prevent?
All right, so right now on the issue of gold mine, one of the things that's become pervasive in the gold mine is the use of chemical like they use a whole lot of chemicals. What's this chemical like?
Dynamite to explode something?
No, not dynamite. The dynamites are used in the mine, but in the gold mine, in the local gold mine, they don't use dynamite. Okay, they do shovel and digging, but then they use there's a chemical. It means keep popping into my head. They use to extract the gold, mercury.
Okay, mercury.
They use mercury to extract the gold. Mercury is a banned substance. Mercury is what we call in environment term is a POP. It's a persistent organic pollutant. It stays long into the environment. It does not dissolve easily. It stays for centuries, stays for hundreds of years. It does not go away. So mercury, the use of mercury, when it enters into the food chain, it enters into the water body, enters into the food chain, it creates mutilation. Some places you go, children are born with one arm, and then people think that, oh, that someone play wish that while the woman child born with one arm. You will normally find those things in mining community. Children are born with disability, funny looking eyes, funny looking selves. Most of those things you find out they happen in mining community because the use of mercury. So mercury now is a banned substance. Liberia signed onto a convention to ban the use of mercury. So in the mining sector, people have unsustainable use practices of mining, of extracting gold, even of extracting diamond. The work of the EPA is to ensure that whatever your mining practices are, especially with the artisanal miners, that's where the problem is. With the artisanal and small scale miners, they mine unsustainably. They dig pit, they leave it, they go to the next place. They dig another pit, they leave it and go to the next place. The EPA has been working with communities, with the lands and mines to ensure that whatever their mining practices are, they ban and the use of mercury is not allowed. And then secondly, when they mine, they can refill the pits and then people can use it for agricultural purposes or other livelihood activities.
Wow, thank you, Dad, for providing that explanation. Now let's come to the physical environment. I know we kind of touch it here and there, but let's see if we can go in detail a little bit. We see a lot of sand mining, the artisanal mining that you were talking about earlier, and tell me, what are the dangers in this kind of mining, and what regulatory measures are you taking to prevent the potential danger of this kind of mining?
Well, it's one of the challenging monitoring place is the sand mining. The sand mining has proven to be very challenging because in the built environment, people at the quest for development, people want to build, people want easy access. Do you know that in Liberia right now, in the night, people go behind people's backyard that got soft sand and dig pits and pull the sand out of the people's backyard, and they get up in the morning, the whole backyard, you see hole all over the place because people want to see and do sand. So even as the Ministry of Lands and Mines and the EPA have forbidden mining, beach sand mining. Beach sand mining is good, but it has to be regulated. Over time, when the accretion takes place, where the ocean deposits some level of sand, people can go and mine it and give time again for accretion to take place. But you cannot continue to mine until you mine inland, and undermine the role and undermine communities. That's what has been happening. The Ministry of Lands and Mines and the EPA have been partnering to regulate the unsustainable use way of sand mining. But it has proven to be very challenging to the both entities because people will go at any length when they want to build, to get sand to build. Now, in Liberia, recently, there has been some people involved in river sand mining, dredging the sand on the river, from the middle of the river, and pumping it onshore and also selling that. That also has been followed through. Some of the places they will have to stop them because they've over mined in the area. Some of them started coming close to the bank and undermining the bank. All those that require regulation. So the physical environment, the built environment, as people quest for modernization and development comes about, they put pressure on the environment. The place they build has to be regulated. The way they build has to be regulated, and that put pressures on the EPA. And even the way they live after they have built has to be regulated. Like, for example, under our laws, it says every waste generator is responsible for the proper disposal of his or her waste. But people collect waste and it end up in garbages. I mean, it end up in drainages, end up in rivers, end up in backyards. Some people even bury them,
Thank
which is
you.
sustainable.
Thank you. And that's waste management you're talking about. Yeah, I got some questions for you. But before we get to that, let's talk about erosion and sediment control. What is the EPA approach on this? Because erosion, we see it all around, and we see substances entering the water bodies that people access, especially those in the leeward counties. What do you do to mitigate these kind of problems?
You see, the Environment Protection and Management Law is very exhaustive.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about there should be a riparian zone between human settlement and any water body.
Right.
So anywhere they got rivers, they got ocean, there should be a buffer where it's called riparian zone of between 15 to 20 meters or even more, no less than 15 meters, 15 to 50 meters, depending on the community.
Right.
There are some places people have built on riverbanks that have less than 2 meters to the water body. When you do that, obviously, when it rains, and because of your human activity, the soil gets loose. When it rains, you will find sedimentation taking place. The sand being washed, creating garlics in the way, and then undermining the loosening the soil, undermining it. So the laws are there, but people have not been able to adhere to the law. Now, what the EPA has been able to do over the years is, may I inform you that the EPA came into force in 2006.
Right.
All right. So since 2006, with minimal support, it hasn't been able to do much because the logistical support is challenged. It's one of the least funded government entities, even though we're mounting of tax to perform.
Right.
But direct funding from government is the least. And I'm not talking about this administration. I mean, from the time EPA being funded. The previous administration under Madam Sirleaf, when the EPA was formed, they started EPA with $350,000 annual budget that could barely pay salaries. EPA are one of the best skilled Liberian professionals, but they are underpaid. You find people in EPA with PhDs, and they are being paid as low as $700-800. But they're only there because of the passion for the field. You understand it? And because what they study and they rather stay there and apply it. So it's one of the least paid entity, but the technician highly professional. So they cannot go out as much as they should have to regulate these things. The only way EPA has been able to regulate sediment control is with mining companies or agricultural company operating across the country. At least they give you something, you can go there. Some individual homes, people have built their homes in floodplain and drainages and waterways. The EPA have been able to tell someone that you have to remove these structures because it obstruct the movement of the water, and what have you. Sometimes it's challenging because people don't understand, that's my land. And so because it's your land doesn't mean you can build anywhere. It's your land. What you have to build has to be regulated by government.
Thank you, Dr. Blama. Again, folks, Dr. Blama here is our guest at Focus on Liberia. This is our Wednesday edition here at Focus on Liberia. We are talking about the Environmental Protection Agency, a very good agency that can help to make life, livable in Liberia in a way that we can all be safe. That before we get to the solid waste management, let's talk about clean air, land and water. And my question I'm asking is, do we really have clean air in Liberia? Do we have clean water in Liberia? And are there laboratories to test these things to, put the public in the know that the air that they are accessing or, are clean, the water that they are accessing, are there laboratories to clean, to test these things?
Yes, the EPA has evolved over the years. One of the things some of us did, I went after some of our development partner, and we got some of the best state-of-the-art modern science, laboratory equipment and monitoring. In fact, before I even joined the EPA in
Mhm.
2006, 2007, I
Right.
used to work for the UN Environment Program. The
Okay.
UN Environment Program provided some training for the EPA in 2006 and 2007, and it brought some equipment from Geneva. After the training, they almost took this equipment back, and I refused. I told them, no, you brought the equipment for the project. After the training, let us give it to the EPA. And the EPA then at the time never had a laboratory.
Mhm.
I didn't even work for government then. I
Mhm.
personally used my own resources and asked the EPA to give us one room that we adapted as a lab. And I
Okay.
spent my own money to transform that room into a lab, put benches, put things around. And today, that lab is well functioning. It can do a lot of tests and analysis. It have been built over the time. More equipment have come in. So yes, the EPA does have the equipment to do monitoring. The challenge with air monitoring,
Mhm.
most of the time, the EPA normally do air. They don't do just random air monitoring
Okay.
because it's costly, you know. So the EPA will normally do air monitoring in concession areas because
Okay.
what the concession companies will do, they give you what we call baseline study. You
Mhm.
know, they give you the current state of the air in the area so that in their operation, if at any time EPA goes there and see that the level of pollution has gone, the EPA can bring them to book. So they will give you they will do collect air samples and give it to the EPA through their independent consultant. And the EPA team will go in the field to verify that, to say, okay, you told us that the particular matters is this. We want to make sure that's what it is. So yes,
Hmm.
the EPA go in the field to verify data. But in terms of around the city,
Mhm.
I think one of the greatest form of pollution in Monrovia is from diesel generators and moving vehicles.
Right.
Monrovia is toxic. I mean, to a larger extent, there's a UNEP report that talks about the toxicity of Monrovia, how very polluted the air is out of the vehicles. And the vehicle is because of the kind of quality of fuel that are brought into the country sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The particular matter in the fuel is very low, it's going to create pollution. It's going to create going to damage vehicles very soon. So the kind of petroleum sometimes and the fuel that are bought in the country, some of them are third and fourth grade. And so if it is not properly regulated, it can create damages for the vehicle and also create, look, a lot of the sicknesses in Monrovia, a lot of people
Mhm.
get from respiratory related diseases like heart heartburn, heart failure, high blood pressure, lungs problem is from air pollution because,
Wow.
yeah, it's from air pollution. And air pollution all over the city, diesel generators are running, and the fuel, if there's a low grade, it will create that kind of damage. And the vehicles that are running, if the fuel they're using is low grade, it can create that kind of problem.
And
So,
and so that quickly on this one, so we can and the petroleum products that are brought into the country, you just said they are like third grade, and the potential there is high, to pollute the air, thereby making the air not safe for our people. Does the EPA have a say in what kind of petroleum products are imported into the country?
interestingly, to the best of my knowledge, that's something that the EPA have found very challenging because the issue of petroleum in this country,
Mhm.
the running of the LPRC has been highly politicized, where the managing director of the LPRC doesn't see themselves as running business. And so they don't, most of the time, it takes, it's a challenge to other. I'm not talking about this administration. I've
Mhm.
worked in the
Mhm.
sector now. I've worked in the environment sector now for 19 years, and for the like 19 years, I've seen it has been a challenge on the part of the EPA to bring the LPRC, for example, to compliance because they don't want to open their lab for the EPA to do. They have their own lab,
Okay.
but it can't be the player and the referee.
No,
So
not at all. It's
yeah,
not.
so they don't send their petroleum to the EPA for quality control and clearance before it's imported. It is imported. The EPA don't go to the storage tank, the PST, the petroleum storage tank, to collect samples to verify if what you say you brought in is actually the right quality, and so there's that imbalance. There's not been that cohesiveness in
And
terms of
and
monitoring,
that not cutting you
actually
off.
monitoring that sector, that petroleum sector, to make sure they are in adherence to the Environment Protection and Management Law.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to say, I from my research, I see that there is interministerial or interagency coordination that's supposed to assist or that exists between you and other institutions that almost like work hands in hand. So I know you explained it, but I'm just wondering why would they not allow you to do your work? Because looking at those product is one of the things you need to look at to make sure that it's safe to be used in the country.
I tell you, sometimes you pay unannounced visit. Their health and safety measures are very weak. Their staffs are exposed to danger. I wasn't. I mean, when I got relief of my post, there was this issue of oil spill.
Mm-hmm.
I know at the EPA in 2013, we tried to develop a national oil spill contingency plan for Liberia, because we knew oil spill doesn't have to be people mining crude oil offshore. It can be oil spill from tankers. It can be oil spill from just offloading on a jetty. You can have oil spill. But we didn't get that kind of cooperation. But there was an oil spill a few months back.
In the Clarendon area, the whole communities were flooded and polluted. And the residents there were like, it was a Christmas for them. They didn't know the risks.
Yeah, but they didn't know the risks, associated risks, And till now, that place is still very polluted, because over time, all the fish in that area died, what have you. But if you had an oil spill contingency plan in place, that we tried to initiate, but they didn't get the support from the sector entities like Maritime. Maritime did support the initiative, but like LPRC and the Port Authority, these two entities sometimes they lay back in terms of supporting these things. And they are the direct revenue generation entities. The EPA is regulating and enforcing, so it raised minimum resources that cannot extend into areas like that. So, so if there was an oil spill contingency plan in place, the response could have been timely. Whenever people talk about disaster, everything that occur, there are always occurrence. But your response time to mitigate the problem or to address the problem can lead to this disaster. So if there's a disaster, if there's a fire burn or something burst somewhere, between the time of occurrence, maximum to 72 hours, there must be an intervention on the ground. If you don't do that, it will spread into cosmic proposal that can affect the general population.
All right. Thank you. Again, folks in cyberspace, this is Focus on Liberia. I'm Anthony C. hosting. We are in conversation with Dr. Nathaniel Blama. We are talking about the work of the Environmental Protection Agency, and an agency he served as its executive director for some time. That led him to solid waste management. And my memory is fresh on this one, and you are aware, when you were there, that was when there was stockpile of debt all around Monrovia. Monrovia was stained. The pictures were all over the place, but not only that, people that visited Liberia that I know took some pictures. So it was terrible. And you were at the EPA. Did you help at the time to provide some options to have cleared that stockpile of debt all around? And what was the potential of that kind of debt all around the city at the time?
All right, like I told you, the law says every waste generator is responsible for the proper management and disposal of his or her waste. For example, you go to the stove, or you go to the farmer's market, you buy whatever you want to buy, you come home, you extract what you want to eat. the ones you don't want to eat, you are responsible to make sure it's properly disposed.
Certainly.
Now, in America and other places, they have an appropriate disposal mechanism to the
Yeah.
point where you even do segregation from the house. You
Mm-hmm.
put bottles in different places, you put can in different places, you put
Right.
organic waste in other places, you know. Yeah. In Liberia, the system is broken. We don't have the system where there's separation of waste. All of our waste end up in one location. Now, the EPA role on the waste is to create is to regulate the way people manage, handle, and dispose of their waste.
Mm-hmm.
But the municipalities, the municipalities are fully responsible to ensure that the waste generated from the municipality ends up appropriately to the disposal site. While the EPA monitor and set in place regulation. Yes, we do have regulation in place. Yes, we do have certification processes in place. But the challenge is inadequate logistics for the municipalities and for the communities. Now, there are CBOs, community-based organizations that are in waste collections, but they have limited support. Some of them collect the waste from household waste. They carry it to a concentrated site or a collection site, and the municipalities don't have the needed logistics to move it from there to the landfill. That's creating problem, you know. Out of Monrovia, the EPA has been able to work with other communities across the country to set up appropriate waste disposal facilities, you know, landfill in other part of the country. Some of the cities outside Monrovia are very clean, you know, unlike Monrovia, where their high level of pollution is not like people don't want to properly dispose their waste, but they don't know how or where to carry it. So I mean, it's a dual challenge. I hope administration and it can be just rest on the shoulder of the municipalities because they need support. They're not generating the kind of income that will allow them to do it. In the past, the World Bank has been a support to the government of Liberia, especially the city of Monrovia. But in fact, their support, like Monrovia alone, the city of Monrovia has over 600 communities. And at least each community should have a skip bucket, a skip bin, a bucket of waste, collect the waste, or one or two. May I submit to you that out of the 600 communities, we have in the whole country less than 50 buckets. So you can just imagine the ratio. Where does the waste end up? They end up in rivers, they end up in the lake, they end up in the lagoon, they end up in the mangroves. People bury them and do all kinds of things. Some of them end up in drainages, you know, and you can name the rest. You know, some of them people even take their waste and throw it in the ocean. You know, that's how dire it is. So it's a serious problem.
Very serious problem, that. And if you look at slum communities, that is the segment that we are about to get to. It's kind of difficult, you know, when people don't have latrines. My experience is that where I lived before coming here, when the night came, we were happy because it was easier to 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 get that waste away. But in the
First life.
day, you either have to walk all the way on the beach or go to the nearby bush. But in the night, it was easier. All you needed was a plastic bag. So this is a very serious. And so my experience at the time that was that during the time the reading season is coming and it's going away, a lot of people getting sick because when the sun
Yeah,
comes, the heat is coming because people used to bury their feces, and that has
yeah,
been the problem.
yeah.
You
It's a
know,
serious problem. It's a serious problem, and um, I think one of the thing that one of the things the president talked about before was transforming slum community. I hope he can do that, relocating some of these people from some of these slum communities to go to places, build real low income earning houses, and let them move in. I mean, it's disappointing that some of those communities like Town, you know, Point Four, West Point, all of that, some of those communities they don't have bathroom in them anymore. You know, because most of them were built with a sewage system that ran into the ocean, but our sewage system is damaged. So as a result of the damage of those sewage, that sewage system, The people end up throwing their feces in tiny plastic bag, keep it in the night, they go throw it away, and they throw it on the beach, or throw it in and bury them,
Right,
it's,
right.
it's
That
very
has been
embarrassing.
the case. So
And
let come to
people
mhm,
that live along along the rivers, like the Maserado River, they
mhm.
build their latrine over the river, and they go and use it, sit right over the river and poop, and then you see fishes come and eat it, and then sometimes
And
people
then the
go
fisherman goes to fishing, he catches that
and
same fish, and the next thing is in the pot.
in the park.
All right, folks, in cyberspace, focus on Liberia. Anthony is hosting Wednesday special with Dr. Nathaniel Blama. We are discussing the EPA and its work. He served there. Dad, slum communities remain the same years after years, government after government. We see these communities getting flooded during the rainy season. We all have seen pictures of people, adults setting their coal pots on, chair just because the level of the house or the ground floor is. I mean, these stories have been over and over, government after government. And then when you also look at what is going on with sea erosion, that at Buchanan City, for example, there's a massive sea erosion. In Harper, Maryland County, you talk about Nicrutan earlier, you talk about West Point. What does the EPA, does the EPA has any role in protecting these coastal areas and the swamp communities that are being affected, all the time?
The EPA is the only government entity that has mandate on coastal zone management under the law, that is responsible to protect our coastlines from sea erosion. So what the EPA has done over the years, starting from Buchanan, it did an intervention on Atlantic Street to prevent our street from being wiped out. It did an intervention in Nicrutan that prevents the D12 High School from being wiped out. It was a 2 point something million project that will access through the Global Environment Facility, and that seawall defense was built in Nicrutan, behind D12 School. Literally the ocean was coming and hitting the school. At some point, they had to suspend classes entering the school building, but through the work of the EPA and partners that were pushed behind, the ocean was pushed behind. That facility is secure now. Before I left the EPA, I worked with the Global Environment Facility. We secured $9.6 million from the Global Environment Facility to build seawall defense in Sino, Greenville City. That city has been threatened by massive coastal erosion, and we secured some money from the Global Environment Facility. As we speak, the funding is approved, and UNDP is working with the EPA in trying to execute our project. It might start this year to protect Greenville. Additionally, from the Green Climate Fund, we did apply for additional grant to secure money to build seawall defense in West Point. As you know, West Point is badly threatened by coastal erosion, and it's some of the impact of climate change. Sea level rise create coastal erosion. So we fought. That grant is partly approved because the proposal was approved to the point where they gave money to do additional studies of $1 million. That study was done. That grant is around $39 million that should be coming in to build seawalls defense around Sino. So yes, there are a lot of intervention the EPA has done to ensure that the coastlines of Liberia are protected, but also there are threatening hotspots around Monrovia. There are threatening hotspots, that we identify through a study, and like for example, the JFK hospital is one of the hotspots. There has to be an intervention around there to protect that hospital. over time. So through other projects, I hope those that are there now can work it through and secure attraction funding from out there so they can help the government and the citizens protect themselves against the impact of climate change.
Thank you so very much. Let's come to your work. When you were there during your administration, um, what were the specific challenges you faced as executive director of that institution? And what were some specific accomplishments? What were some things that were not there that you provided leadership and you did ensure were at the environmental agency for its work?
Okay, so I normally don't like to talk about challenges. There will always be challenges, there is never enough resources. But for me, wherever there's challenges beyond, beyond, you might see opportunities. So what I sought to do was to look for opportunities. Obviously, government is constrained with meager resources, with competing demands. And so you cannot depend on central government's budget to support the EPA. We raise more support from outside government to support the work of the EPA than government could give us. The only money we got from government was only enough to pay salaries. It could not even buy a pickup, or motorbike. But when the time I spent there, I mobilized over 100 motorbikes for the inspectors and for the work of the EPA from partners outside and bought laboratory equipment and what have you. One of the greatest achievements, I can tell you why, the GAC audited the EPA twice, and out of the audit of the EPA, graded EPA as one of the best ran public institutions. The reports are there with the GAC, to the point where the GAC among the West African, among West Africa, they got the auditors meet, the General Auditing Commission across West Africa meet, and they share ideas. So they have a program where every country submit 2 or 3 of the audit report that will be reviewed by a panel. And one of the audit reports, our audit report was submitted, won an award from the West African Auditing Committee. They won that audit report was certified as one of the best ran public institution and best reported something that led to them coming into Liberia to do a documentary on the EPA and the work of the EPA. That record is there. What I try to do is, because if internally you don't have money, then you have to look outside, look for opportunity.
Right.
So what I tried to do during my time was to look outside to partners to see what we can attract. So I tried to put in place a system that is credible, that is functional. All of that system we put in Liberia is one of the very few countries in fact, the only country in West Africa that was certified by the Green Climate Fund to become a delivery partner. A delivery partner, it means instead of sending the money through UNDP, instead of sending it through the UN Environment Program or World Bank, they will give the money directly to the government through the EPA to implement direct projects. So we were able to, during our tenure, make Liberia a delivery partner. During my tenure, we were able to secure almost and get approval of almost 7 or 8 projects. If you sum up all of these projects, they are in a true of $60 or $70 million. 50 or 60 million in total of all of the projects we worked through that was approved for Liberia. And some of them in agricultural adaptation, some of them in coastal defense, some of them in building a climate information system, and you can name the rest. And because my thing is, we don't have money here. We go outside and look for support. Look, the global environment is a new paradigm, and let me just tell you why I knew that. Let me just backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
In 2008, case, when Madam Sirleaf government came in, I was the secretary for the environment team group that developed the PRS. First was the IPRS, and then came the poverty reduction strategy. I worked on the AFT. We developed the environment component of the transformer. I mean the AFT, the Agenda for Transformation. You know, when they were doing the security sector reform in Liberia, the UNMIL, we worked with UNMIL that developed the security training manual, the environment chapter of that security training manual.
Yeah.
I personally spearheaded it and made significant input. I'm talking about 2008 and 2009. You know, when Liberia had to qualify to access the MCC, the Millennium Challenge account, the EPA undermined
administration. Okay.
Yeah, then I was deputy director of the EPA. Undermined, then they led a charge instructed by the then boss, Madam Ayan Vohiri, to lead a charge to develop the EPA's position on the MCA, the natural resource component. The natural resource component scored the highest when we submitted it to the MCA that qualified Liberia to challenge the MCC that is now going away. You know what I'm saying? I chaired a meeting of African technicians in 2013 in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, that developed Africa Common Position on the Sustainable Development Goal, the SDG. That document we know very well. So what I'm telling you is, coming with all of these global or institutional perspective, I knew that there were opportunities out there that we could access, you know. And so rather than challenges, we looked more within and sought what we could do to support the administration and to support government move forward, because I saw opportunities. If you do SWOT analysis, you know, you will talk about, you know, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat, right? And I look more towards the opportunities and the strength rather than weakness and the threat, you know, and that's what we try to use. We have strength, we multiply our strength. We saw opportunity, we went after them, and that's how we were able to achieve a lot in a relative short. What we achieved in 2.5 years in the entire lifespan of the EPA of the last 15 years is past it.
Thank you so very much. Folks, in cyberspace, focus on Liberia. We are in conversation with Dr. Nat Blama. He is our guest, and we are discussing the EPA, its work, and what happened when he was there as executive director. So that you served there, and the transition was not smooth. You said that you know, you were removed, and you are out. So let's talk about life after the EPA. Do you feel any sense of anger or regret for things that happened and things probably that you wanted to have done that you did not do before you were made to leave?
No, I don't. I like I started with telling you, I'm a Christian, you know. And I can boast of my Christianity because I know God for myself. You know, I don't particularly hold any grudge, any anger against anybody. I was always an honor to serve, you know. To be honest with you, it's an honor to, when you have an opportunity, when you're being called by the chief executive of your country and say, come and serve, it's an honor. It's not a privilege. I mean, it's a privilege, not a right. You know, so the privilege I had to serve is something I receive and serve with humanity and with diligence. Now, would I have wished to be there and do more? Yes. I had a lot of plans in place. I've even developed a plan to work, started lobbying with partner to build a national headquarters for the EPA, the first green building. I've done the architectural design. I hadn't taken it to the president because I was chasing donors to get commitment, to say, yes, okay, we'll help you on this then before I take it to the president. Because my thing is that, okay, we're renting here, government is paying rent here. Can we build a headquarters? So we were working towards that. And just before I left, one of the partners one of the projects that we wrote, we infused some money in there, and that project got approved. So there was almost $1 million in there to start the process of building EPA headquarters. Another project we wrote, we infused money in there. There's a $500,000 in that project to build EPA satellite offices across the country. So rather than EPA renting buildings across the country, there's money to build headquarters for EPA in each county. You understand it? That's what we were able to do. So I mean, my thinking was to do more to support the government. But hey, our call to serve, I was asked to sit down, and I don't particularly regret it. Before I went to government, I was in private sector. I used to work for government before. In 2014, I resigned and went into private service. For almost 4 years, I was in private service before I came back to government. When I'm asked to sit down again, I go back into private service. I feel, I mean, people who see me now say, you put on a lot of weight. I'm not under too much. I don't put myself under too much pressure. I don't have much to think about. I don't have much to do. Like I used to take things and put on my head. So I highly slept. Now I can sleep and get up. I don't have to go to work 7 o'clock. I can come to work 9 o'clock. Do the work for myself. I don't have to stay in office until 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I can go home 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock as I wish. And so it's less stressful. But it was an honor to serve. And at least I serve with diligence, and I don't feel any indifference. Look, I learned one thing coming up, that from the time you enter the office, that's the time you start planning your exit, because your exit can be by enemies. Look at some of our colleagues who fell dead through accident. Some people die by accident. Some people, die mysteriously. I mean, that's not how they plan to exit. But your exit could be by any means like that. So psychologically, if you prepare yourself that way, when your exit comes, you will say, well, this is the time, and you want to accept it graciously. And that's what I did. So I don't particularly have any indifference. But our life after EPA, I mean, in the midst of the COVID, has been challenging because, I mean, some of our partners and friends are locked up behind the other side of the world. You can't move, no free travel. So my work I do largely depends on investors coming in to do work. They come and do work. We provide consultancy on the way they do the development consultancy. I do environmental and development consultancy for firms, for people who want to invest. But if they're not coming in to invest, how do I make money? So that has been a little challenging. But by the grace of God, we've been able to scale and sail smoothly, and we've been okay. And honestly, I'm very hopeful for the future of this country now than ever. And I know the country is going to get better, even though people have their own doubt. But I'm hopeful for the future of Liberia.
Talking about being hopeful for the future of Liberia, you are there. So those of us who are staying millions of miles away can only see Liberia, feel Liberia through your eyes. You are a social being. Earlier, you spoke about working with young people and trying to give them loan in the amount of $80,000 and all that. How is our country doing now? I don't see you to be an economist, but in your home, you are an economist because you spend money, you balance your budget. How are we doing economically? How are we doing? What is the tension that's going on in the country? Speak to me about that.
I don't know if Liberia is any different from the global community.
Okay.
Globally, the trend of events globally has depicted and detected to the economy. Unlike countries like America that can infuse trillions of dollars into the economy, we don't have that kind of reserve. So our economy is a cash-based economy where people get and spend. We don't have reserves. So to be honest with you, I don't expect anything more than what we're having today. And we cannot, it's easy to attribute it to government, yes, because they're in charge, but I wouldn't put it squarely at the feet of government. We'll put it on the current global crack, the global trend. The global trend has created this. I mean, look at America has infused In less than 1 year, America infused over $2 trillion into the economy. You know, we don't have that kind of money to put in our economy to keep it stable. So look, I received more requests for assistance and help from the time I left public office than when I was in public office. Because since I left, this new trend came in and things started trending backward. And and the challenge of government meeting payroll, of government continuing its development agenda is there. And keeping things stable is also challenging because a lot of companies shut down, closed down, and left. People that were working for those companies are no more. For example, the UN alone were putting in almost $500 million annually into the Liberian economy. It's not coming anymore. All of those Liberians that were benefiting from that, what do you think they're doing? They're sitting down doing nothing. Everybody can find employment in government. The private sector would have been the best place to absorb most of them, but the private sector is down. I hear some of the companies are laying off staff because their production drop or their production cost exceeds the market price. So they're scaling down on staff. So all of those challenges will definitely weigh on the economy and will definitely affect the ordinary people. Now, how the government adjusts to deal with it, that's something else. I think one of the challenging things that people have complained about people not having access to money. I hear people talk about printing new money. Well, it could be, but it's not I think it's just a quick fix. It will not prepare. One of the things I've seen, there are a lot of people keeping money in their homes. There needs to be restored confidence in the banking sector that allows people to take the money to the bank. You know what I'm saying? There has to be where people can have confidence in the banking sector. People keep money home. There are more money in people private vaults, in people private saving, in businesses. All these Lebanese and Fuda people keeping money in their stores, in their vault, and not carrying it to the bank. So you go take money from the bank, you go and buy from the Fuller man, and he doesn't take the money to the bank. And you know what I'm saying? But you got credit line to the bank. The next day you go to the bank, you have money there. You don't have money there. So the government needs to be strong. Rigid, the central bank, to make sure that people keeping above certain amount of money will be considered economic sabotage. Let people return the money to the bank. I think that would be one of the easier way of helping to improve the circulation of the Liberian dollar. Some people say, let's print more Liberian dollar. Okay, let's print new one. What about the US dollars? Are we going to print more US dollar? No, we don't have power to print US dollars because the US dollar is not our legal tender. We are using it as a legal tender, but it's not. We don't have authority to print it. So why is the US dollar not in circulation? There were less money. There was less money in circulation during Taylor time, and we never had shortage of money in the market. You understand what I'm saying? There was less money. In fact, now we got a lot of platforms that you don't need cash. That time it was cash. People using mobile money, like electronic transfer, people using Visa card, people using different exchange platform now. You don't really need a cash. Even companies got their workers, they're giving them gas coupon rather than giving them cash. So you go to the gas, you carry your card, you go to Total, your Tom card, you can buy petroleum from there. So there are a lot of opportunities where we are becoming more cash free. So why is the shortage of cash? I think people are holding money in their homes, and the central bank needs to step forward and help restore confidence in the banking sector, or else if you have a print new set of money, it's not going to help the situation if people are going to continue to do withholding.
Thank you. Dr. Nathaniel Blama there giving us his own observation about the current trend of things in our country, Liberia. We have just been having an exclusive conversation about the Environmental Protection Agency, its works, and what he was up to during his administration, challenges and accomplishments. He was able to lay all out. Our final question will be, you said earlier that you have never been arrested, you have never been indicted, nothing, but you have been accused, and we will come to that, and that is why you were close with, to give you the opportunity to respond and clarify the accusations that came against you at the time you were at the EPA. But I'll read a few comments from our viewers here, and then we will come to that. This comment is from this person. The person is hard to pronounce, but the person said good. This one is from Yanta Stala Herring. These are things that you all need to share with your children. Get out of office and spend time to teach your children. Stella again, the man was using his head so his body won't suffer. Miata again, thank you. Don't give that money, give them knowledge. That's when you were doing your introduction there. Keep strengthening, secure, and support something that was sustained. I don't know. People need to write these things carefully so we can be able to read them. Mercury is a chemical element with the symbol Hg and atomic number 8. It is commonly known as quicksilver and was formerly named. Let me leave it right there. I can't tell that one. This one is from Abel. What will he say about the MAG gold mining incident that occurred in Bum County? Let me see this one. Mianta is busy, yeah. Those Amanda students at LU, go recruit, teach them about volunteerism and put them to work. Okay, let's see. This one is from Dr. Baton Kula. You don't expect the people to do what they haven't been taught from childhood. Teach it in school, jobs, and various markets. This one is from Finney's son. What kind of doctor are you? I am not trying to be funny. Somebody wants to know whether you have your PhD maybe in environmental studies or something else. Finney again, is he a MD or PhD or something else? That Blama will clarify that. This one is from Raphael Cephas. Funding is needed to manage and regulate solid waste. I believe solid waste management. Thank you there for that comment. Let's see this one from Baton Kula again, talking to Logan. That's what they do in the US and other Western countries. It starts from preschool. I think that was when we were talking about waste management, and when you were talking about having different containers, depending on the kind of waste. If it is solid waste, you put it there. If it's plastic, you put it there. Let me see this one from Toure Mohammed. I am watching live from Lofa County, Virginia. So people are watching from all the way. A few comments there that from people watching here on Facebook and participating by commenting. Somebody asked a question whether your PhD or your doctorate is in medical science or something else. I want you to clarify that, and then I will come in with my final question.
Okay, well, there's one particular comment that I'd like to talk about, the MNG.
Right.
Someone asked about the MNG. I think that was a me question there.
Right.
The MNG gold explosion happened before, or the spill happened before I came into the EPA. Yeah. It happened in 2017 when there was the TSF Blue open, went into the community and into the river. And when we came in, what we thought to do to work with them to do cleanup, restore the community, put in place appropriate measures so that there cannot be reoccurrence to the effect where they build a new tailing dam. We work with them. They constructed a completely new tailing dam and decommissioned the old ones because we realized that the old one they were using wasn't too good, and so we work with them. They build something completely new that we think now is much sustainable, and what have you. And someone talk about the solid waste, the solid waste. Yes, we need not, other countries say waste is wealth, so we need people to invest in the waste sector. While waste is a challenge, but it can also be wealth. You invest in the collection of wealth. You invest in the recycling, and that and reuse. That's wealth. Some people even talking about there's now new argument about waste to energy. That's wealth. The argument about using the concentrated waste in the landfill to extract gas for cooking, that creating wealth. So waste might be challenging, but it's also opportunity for employment, for solving health problems, solving environmental problems, for solving unemployment problem, for solving ground pollution problem and all of that. So it's an opportunity. It can be a win-win situation, but it requires upfront investment in the private sector and into government entities. Now you talk about, you asked me the question about what was my response to why I was removed from office and I was accused. Look, I said this before. I walked away, and I wouldn't go back over anything because it has happened, and I wouldn't want to use this platform. Like we talked before, and I said, look, this is something I consider I'm moving forward. I don't want to go back over here, and I maintain that position. I spoke about it before, and my positions then remain the same. And I don't think I want to go over explaining myself, of what happened, what didn't happen, and what have you. It's part of life. Things happen, you take a step forward. Things happen, you take a step forward. Now, someone asks, what kind of doctor I am. I know I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a candidate for PhD in environmental science. But beyond that, I received an honorary doctorate in humane letters, and that's and that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So, but this year or towards the end of this year, I should be completing my program for PhD in environment science. So, and I've worked in this sector for over 19 years. I came into this sector as a cadet. I went through the ranks and file. I served as project manager, program manager, deputy director, and I serve as director. I think I've served in 9 years of this sector.
Thank you.
I'm humbled by the opportunity to serve my country in the way I serve.
Thank you so very much. Folks in cyberspace, we're going to bring you some advertisement here quick for our upcoming shows. This Saturday, Focus on Liberia will be having Senator Segbe, that is Senator Janitor Bocha Segbe. He will sit here with us on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 6 p.m. GMT. He's a former soccer legend of Liberia, now a politician who just got elected as senator for River G County. He will be here live on Focus on Liberia at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. Tomorrow, we will be having Dr. Joseph Bagba. Dr. Bagba will be here, and he and myself will be having an exclusive conversation on what Dr. Bagba describes as the way forward in post-genocide Liberia. He's talking about reconciliation and peace building. How can we reconcile a country, in his opinion, that experienced genocide? That will be 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and you don't want to miss it. And also here at Focus on Liberia on Friday, we'll be having Mandy Siania. Mandy is a Liberian who is in faction designing, and this faction designer will be here on Focus on Liberia Spotlight. We will be asking her on this career path that she has taken. It will be exciting on Friday. You don't want to miss it. And that will be 12 p.m. Eastern Time here at Focus on Liberia. We have other shows that we will share with you. That I think we have completed the interview. But before I can allow you to close, let me read this for all of us. Dr. Oster Jai Quia, who happened to be a progressive, has finally departed this earth. Dr. Tubal Natipote, who happened to be his friend, penned a farewell tribute to him that focused on Liberia, was able to attain, and we want to join Dr. Tubal Natipote and all other Liberians to pay the farewell tribute to this progressive who has passed. Dr. Tipote writes, and I read, farewell, Comrade OJ. Comrade OJ goes beyond true burial in the ground, all coming from the dust. One returning to the dust, but there is no dust because there is no rest in the struggle for justice to end the scourge of injustice until justice for all prevails, no matter what the struggle entails. As we do the progressive talk, we must walk the progressive talk to demonstrate what is real rather than waste, rather than what is surreal, to show commitment in the people's interest, even with tons of bullets to our breast. Whenever death comes, the struggle becomes continuance for justice to the end, to end the scourge of injustice, to let justice for all to prevail as we sing, all hail Liberia, hail. Dr. Tuba Nantipote there paying a tribute to a fallen progressive, Oster Jahi Queer. Dr. Tipote, we join you in saying farewell to OJ for departing us in this difficult time. Well, let's get your closing comment, Dr. Blama. Again, focus on Liberia. Was happy to have had you on this exclusive conversation. I know you spoke about Liberia. I know you say you are hopeful for this country, but there are many who are in despair, Dad. Maybe you are one of the few who's hopeful despite of the
Yeah,
challenges. So for those
from
ones
where
who
you
are still in despair, speak to them for less than a minute about the future of this
look,
country to close. Mm-hmm.
every country have had a dark side,
Mm-hmm.
and we've had ours. And if everybody don't rally support around the country, and if everybody not hopeful of the future of Liberia, then who? If not us, then who will? It should be us. Even though things seem difficult right now, they are difficult. They're still ahead of us. But if we're not hopeful that we can work together and turn it around for us, then who will do it for us? I think we are under obligation to do it for our children and our children's children. So one mistake we have had in the past is nobody want to work and suffer for the next generation. In history, only people who work and prepare that supported the goodness of the next generation. Some of you who live in America today, what you are enjoying today, those that labor for it, they not live to see it. They die, but their children and their grandchildren are. So if we will change the course of things in this country, it's us. And we have to be forward looking, work with whoever is in charge to make it work, put fire to their feet, hold them accountable. You know, every time we talk about president, but what's about the lawmakers? What's about the judiciary? We need to hold everybody accountable so that we can make this country better for ourselves and for our next generation. That's why I'm hopeful for the future of Liberia, because I don't think things going to remain tight. Like things will loosen up in the future, and only by working together can we do that. You know, and I like the piece on unifying the country that one of your speakers is going to speak on. I think that's one of our greater challenge now. We are too divided and we don't see anything good in one another. We need to change our course. So if someone is wrong, you tell them they're wrong. If they're doing right, you tell them they're right. You know, so we don't see everything negative about Liberia. Sometimes we confess too much of negative thing about this country, and sometimes that's why the country not moving forward. We got to be hopeful that things can be and will be better for our country. And that's the only way we can work together to make it work. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. I am humbled, and I avail myself anytime you want us to talk again.
here. Thank you, Dr. Blama. We surely had a very productive conversation. And these are the kind of conversation that are substantive for nation building that we should be having. And I encourage every Liberian who always had the opportunity to listen to us here, focus on Liberia. We don't know all of you. We have a website that you can go to, focusonliberia.net. Go on our website and submit a request to appear and talk about something in your area of specialization. That contribution, that conversation can inspire somebody and their life can change. That conversation can become a policy option to move our country forward. Don't just sit there, do something. Let us talk about it. On that note, folks, we will close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." And it's this song, we says we are all Liberians, that unites us for a Liberia that will only be our country. Dr. Blama, thank you, and bye-bye to everybody.
Thank you.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our home. Liberia people.